Did you hear the news? Gavin Newsom just caved in a big way to President Donald Trump on the issue of illegal immigration. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state representative. And this week, Newsom quietly canceled 17,000 commercial driver's licenses that his state inappropriately issued to illegal immigrants. You might have heard some of the tragedies that have occurred because illegal immigrants who are not properly licensed got into accidents and killed people across the country. The Trump administration threatened California that if they didn't clean up their mess, that they would revoke all commercial driver's licenses in the state. Well, guess what? Newsom conceded. And this comes at a time when Newsom is trying to be the alpha male against Trump, criticizing Democrats for reopening the government during the government shutdown. He's trying to pretend like he's a fighter when, in fact, even Newsom this week caved in to Donald Trump. Good news.
Boy. So we got to talk about yet again another crackdown from the Trump administration. Exactly what I voted for when it comes to getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse that exists within our system, our government. And it is mainly happening in these Democrat states that are allowing an unlimited amount of illegal immigrants to stay in their states, and they're handing out welfare and jobs to illegals that they should not be working. Like, for example, in California, they were handing out CDLs to illegal immigrants. They're also doing this in other blue states as well, too. We're going to talk about that. But I want to talk about California first because Gavin Newsom quietly folded to the president just a couple weeks ago when the administration cracked down on CDLs being issued to illegals. And this happened because of the fact that you have illegals all across the country who can't speak English, they can't read English, but yet they have commercial driver's licenses. They're driving big 18-wheelers and they're killing folks, right? They're getting in crashes left and right. And the administration says, we're cracking down on this. We're not allowing illegals to drive commercial vehicles in this country. And Gavin Newsom ended up revoking tens of thousands of CDLs for illegals as a result of the Trump crackdown. Take a look.
Well, today, the driver's licenses for thousands of commercial drivers across the state were revoked. That includes operators of semi-trucks, school buses, and even some construction workers. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that this is because they were illegally issued to, quote, dangerous foreign drivers. But the Trump administration and Governor Gavin Newsom's office have different stories about why this happened. NBC4's Alex Rosier joins us live from the Commerce truck stop with those details. Alex.
Yeah, today the Department of Transportation put out a statement saying that those 17,000 CDLs were revoked in the state of California because they were illegally issued. But the governor's office quickly responded, saying the Department of Transportation just isn't sharing the truth. Today, truck drivers got back on the road after filling up at the Commerce truck stop. On the same day, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the California DMV revoked 17,000 commercial driver's licenses in the state because Duffy said the CDLs were illegally issued to, quote, dangerous foreign drivers. This morning, the California DMV asked the governor's office to respond, and Governor Newsom's spokesperson said, quote, once again, the Sean Road Rules Duffy fails to share the truth, spreading easily disproven falsehoods in a sad and desperate attempt to please his dear leader. The governor's office says the impacted drivers are not illegal immigrants and that the licenses were withdrawn due to, quote, inconsistency with California law. The DMV didn't respond when asked for further clarification on what that means. But the news comes 1 month after a semi-truck driver who was in the United States illegally was accused of causing a crash that killed 3 people in Ontario. And it follows the California DMV's announcement in September that the DMV cannot issue or renew CDLs to people who are here legally in the United States but are not permanent residents or citizens.
We have definitely seen the impact on our students.
Rosie Trujillo is the office manager at the Los Angeles Trucking College.
We've had students here, and he had already his license, was working, family man, so he just had to go to the DMV and renew his license. He had a DACA, he went, and when he tried to renew it, he couldn't anymore. They said that they don't accept it unless he has residency or citizenship.
And Rosie says most of their students weren't born in the United States.
There's not a lot of people that have the citizenship or residency want to do this. It's people that come from other countries with DACA, with work permits. They're the ones that really want that change in their lives, and they were the ones coming to get their CDL license. We're just afraid that it's going to impact and affect our business, and we don't want it to. We want to be here for a long time.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Gavin Newsom clearly folded, right? He folded like a wet paper bag and then told the media, well, see, we didn't fold to the Department of Transportation cracking down on us. We just did it because we issued the licenses inconsistent with our practices in law, right? Well, again, what does that suggest, right? That broad reasoning suggests that they were giving out CDLs to people who weren't supposed to get them, right? They're trying to play the public like they're dumb because, again, Democrats rely on people being dumb, okay, and stupid. And they basically are saying, well, we didn't really do it because they're here illegally. We just did it because, again, it wasn't consistent with our laws and our standards. And it's like, well, what about it was inconsistent? The fact they were here illegally, right? That they're non-citizens. And that is what Democrats are doing in their states across the country. We got another state here run by Tim Sugarwalls, who's already facing an investigation from the Treasury Department due to the fact that under his leadership, he allowed billions of dollars in welfare payments to be fraudulently directed to Al-Qaeda terrorists, Al-Shabaab terrorists in Somalia, right? Through the Somali community in Minneapolis, which runs the Democrat Party, apparently. So Minneapolis is facing a crackdown over the fraud that has been allowed within the Somali community, okay, an immigration crackdown. And they're facing another crackdown here because of the same issue that California had, which is issuing CDLs to people who aren't eligible, aka illegal immigrants. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and talk about yet again another right-wing conspiracy theory being true.
The focus on Minnesota continues. Minnesota now a target in the Trump administration's efforts to crack down on foreign truck drivers with illegal U.S. commercial driver's licenses. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy also calling out CDL trading providers. Fox 9's Karen Scullen has more on what all of this means tonight. So, Karen, what does the administration mean if we take a step back really quickly? What do they mean when they say illegal U.S. commercial driver's licenses?
Well, right, it can actually mean a number of things, but in a letter to Governor Walz and Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson, a few examples are given of immigrants from Somalia, El Salvador, Ukraine, and other countries where these drivers were issued Minnesota CDLs that are valid for years after their documents that give them the right to work in this country actually expire. We're talking by a few months to even 4 years in some cases. So if they were issued a CDL in, say, 2025, it might be good until 2029, but actually their work papers expire in 2026. And there are many examples given of this. Secretary Duffy saying 1/3 of these CDLs issued to foreigners are actually issued illegally.
So what are the demands now being issued by the U.S. Department of Transportation?
1/3. 1/3. 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 issued illegally. It's almost as if laws don't matter, right? Rules don't matter according to Democrats who want these illegals to get all these jobs, to get all these welfare benefits in order to benefit themselves, right? To get their votes, to get their support so that, again, Democrats can maintain power and control. That's what you guys got to understand. This is what it's about. It's about power and control. That's why Democrats are doing this. They're abusing the system in order to allow people to get access to resources they should not get access to, jobs they should not get access to, in order to benefit themselves. And then they pretend like they're doing it because we're good people. We're humanitarians. And it's like, no, you're not a good person. You're not a humanitarian. You're not doing this out of charity. You're not doing this out of the kindness of your heart. You're doing it for your own benefit, for your own selfish reasons. You're selling out the American people, the American taxpayer, for your own benefit. That's what Democrats are doing. And that's what makes this so bad, because they pretend as if they're doing this because they're good people. They're Christ-like, right? According to Democrats who, we know they don't, really like Christianity. They don't like Christians. They don't like Jesus, right? But again, they pretend like they are the true Christians, right? In regards to how they act, when that's not the case. They're not acting in good faith. They're only doing it for their own benefit. That's it.
Right. Basically, Minnesota is being given 30 days to comply, meaning revoke the illegal licenses and comply with everything, or federal highway funding to the tune of $30 million will be revoked. Obviously, a lot of money here at stake. And we did just get a statement from DVS. We'll hold off on just a minute for that one, but I did get a statement from DVS, the Department of Vehicle Services, saying a lot of this didn't seem to surprise them. They had actually already done their own audit of the system on these CDLs. They had already identified that some of them, due to a clerical error or some sort of error, were issued illegally, and they have already been fixing these issues. They do contest some of the claims by the feds and when it comes to these CDLs that were issued. It also says, moving forward, as required by the U.S. Department of Transportation, DVS has immediately paused issuing these non-domiciled CDLs. We have already begun an additional internal review and will submit an action plan to the feds. So that's what they're saying. Also, we had this statement come in, the chair of Minnesota's Transportation Committee saying it is alarming that the Walz administration has put Minnesotans at risk by issuing CDLs to people who aren't eligible. It has failed at one of the most basic and core functions of government. His administration's sloppy governance has put Minnesotans and trucking businesses at risk, and now over $30 million in federal highway funding. So obviously just a lot at stake here, Simone.
Yeah, and Karen, the feds are also cracking down on CDL training in schools. What does this look like?
Right, in a related but kind of a separate issue, there are accusations of falsifying or manipulating training data, not meeting required curriculum standards or instructor qualifications. There are about 18 locations that have put on notice by the feds. However, several on that list that we actually spoke to either weren't aware of the claims against them or don't even do CDL training. The administration did acknowledge that some of them might not be training right now. So really that part of it is just a little unclear, just really a lot to figure out on this one.
Yeah, a lot developing and people still reacting to this, as we just heard in that statement that you just received. Thank you, Karen.
The reality is that this type of fraud, this type of abuse, this type of waste is happening in these blue states, okay? They're not doing their jobs of basic governance, making sure that these commercial licenses, which again are supposed to go through a process, right? You're supposed to go through a process of checks and balances to make sure that the people who are getting these licenses are actually eligible, that they pass their test, that they can speak English, that they meet all the requirements that are necessary to obtain these licenses. And this stuff is important. The reason why you have a process like this in the first place, the reason why you have to jump through this type of red tape is because it protects people's safety, right? It's funny how Democrats are all about red tape, except when it comes to illegal immigrants, right? Apparently, when it comes to illegal immigrants, they should just be allowed to do whatever, okay? If you're gonna have something like that in place, then you need to enforce it, right? The whole point is to enforce the standards that we have set in order to make sure that our roads are safe, okay? We cannot have people who are driving who don't meet the standards, okay? Who can't speak English, who can't read the road signs. Like that is dangerous, okay? And we've already seen the consequences of incompetent Democrat governance. We've already seen it. And again, the administration is cracking down on it. And I think that the administration deserves credit for that. It's stuff like this that the administration is doing that I do not think that Trump is getting enough credit for. This is the exact type of stuff that Republican voters have wanted and wished for years, right? And we're finally getting it. And for whatever reason, there's this narrative that, oh, Trump's not doing what he promised, or Trump's not doing enough. And I'm like, every single day, like, I am reading the news and coming across stories like this of things that President Trump is doing that are important, right? And stuff like this is what we want. We want to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. We know it's there. We know it exists. And Democrats are hiding it, okay? They're facilitating it for their own personal gain. One of the best ways that you can stop the Democrat Party, right, is to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, because they thrive based off of that. That is how they thrive. So if you get rid of it, then essentially you're cutting the funding, you're cutting the legs from the Democrat Party out from under them. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share. A Black conservative perspective. Peace.